Okay, I decided I'm going to condense the other two I was going to make into one video. So, this will be a combination then. So, because this part's really short. Okay, so we have the one and only true Christianity, which is the one and only way. There's no other religion or way or path or whatever, okay? That's it. Outside of that, you have so many things, and I don't mean, when it comes to denominations, in a way, yes, and in a way, no. Depending on the denomination, there's overlap here, but some denominations are cults, and some of them people don't even know they are, and I've talked about cults, like the definition of a cult. I mean, basically, it's where they claim you have to belong to their organization in order to be saved. The truth is, you have to belong to Jesus in order to be saved. They don't, right? So they're not saved, no matter what the organization they belong to. We're only saved if we belong to Him. We don't need anything else. All right? So that's the number one definition of a cult. And they have a lot of other things, like they mostly deny the deity of Christ. There's one denomination that doesn't deny that, but they hold to the other thing that I just said. But they have so many other things tacked on that you would think, how could they even believe in the deity of Christ if they believe all this other stuff about, his mother, Okay. So, anyway, but usually they deny that. And then number 3 is they put you on a works trip. I mean, we're talking works here. They'll have you running all over the place. And then 4 is mind control. So the next part of this video is going to be all about that. But first of all, I wanted to mention this list here of counter cult ministries. Since I was young, I've been, hearing about these, and, it was a big deal back then. Since the year 2000 came around, all these things have been sort of, watered down. So many things, whether it's missionary work, evangelism, knowing true doctrine and taking it seriously, avoiding the cults and knowing apologetics, how to reach these people, what the difference is, all these things. It's all been kind of swept under the rug by, certain people, but it's just as important, even more than ever, to be aware of this stuff. So, counter cult ministries, there's a list. When I was young, it was a different list, okay, but a lot of these have gotten corrupted. And if I could think of, oh yeah, I'll mention that. But okay, first of all, the good ones I found right now, we have this one. So here's a list, okay? So this is good to look at these websites, and they'll show you what the difference is between that cult and a true faith, okay? So, and they have resources, outreach resources for these people trapped in these cults, okay? So we have Watchmen, Fellowship, and these are websites, okay? It's not YouTube channels, it's websites. Then there's this one, Center for apologetics research. And it's all countercult. So this is 1, this is 2, okay, and then 3, and this is an old one. The Berean Call. All right, now, they all have resources that are anti-cult. So you'd have to go and look at them all and explore their website and see where they have their lists for different things. And you might find more. These were the main ones, okay? Now, a long time ago, and I'm just going to draw a line here, and then I'll list this one. 4 is this one, which I used to recommend. Forgot what this stood for, but okay. Anyway, this is a counter-cult ministry, but they have gone in a direction of the Reformed. So I'm just going to write this here. However, their information on the cults may still be accurate otherwise, but their statement of faith shows this. So I just want to warn you of that. Okay, that's why it's separated on the list. Then there was this other one. This was when I was young. They had this one, CRI, and it used to be really good. And then that one got messed up. So unfortunately, wait a minute. Let me just see. I know this was apologetics, maybe research ministry, maybe cults or center or something. Okay, it was in my mind the other day and I can't figure what it was right now, but you'll find it this way. This guy went off another deep end, so all right, but it used to be really good. I mean, when I was young, I would listen to the Christian radio and they had a program and it was really good. I would listen to it most days. They would talk about cults, and I learned a lot, when I was young. I'm so glad, because you couldn't find this stuff now. I don't know. It's so bad. Okay, this other one here is another one that's iffy. It was a book. It used to be good. It was called The Kingdom of the Cults. And it was written by that guy, that Walter Martin, if that rings any bells. But anyway, he wrote this book, and apparently he had them all listed in there. And I think it was Billy Graham who got him to take a certain one out of there, right? So it got compromised. It's not accurate now, and he took out this one. So, because there was this whole agenda with, false ecumenism, so they wanted to do that everywhere. That's what was happening. But this is pretty old anyway, but some of this is timely in a sense that these cults are still around and you can still use some of the information. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay. So that's the list. This is the thing, right? They took out. That's the list. So that's the cult thing. Now I'm going to get into another item that's really a hot topic. How do these cults get you, right? How do they get people in there? And that brings us to the hot topic of this: mind control. And then, if you're a victim, you don't know this is happening to you. So this is like a warning video on how to know this is happening and how to avoid it. Know the signs, the red flags, and avoid it, okay? Okay, and this will cover all kinds of areas of life. It's not just religious cults, but they use most of these tactics that I'm going to talk about. So, I'll mention this list. Some of them they might not use, many they do, but it applies to all kinds of things. First one, hypnosis. Now, of course, if you go into a psychiatrist, they know how to do this stuff, right? But then you're signing up for it if you go there, and you agree to do that. And they hypnotize people for different reasons. I mean, you'd have to look that up, but there are different reasons why. I'm not saying I'm for any of this, okay? I'm just saying that's what they do. But they do this in other, even religious settings, because I'll give you an example. When I went to church, what I noticed was this, okay? Like most of these churches now, if they claim to be biblical, you go in after they finally, I don't mean finally, but they get to the sermon part, which I mean, not finally, you know what I mean? They get there, right? And then the pastor will typically say, okay, let's open up our Bibles too, and it'll be a certain part of the Bible, Luke chapter 10 or whatever. So people are sitting here, right? They have their Bibles typically on their lap. It's open to that page that he's talking about. Okay? He starts talking, this is what I've seen typically, okay? He'll read through the passage, which isn't that long. It'll just be a short little part. Then he'll go over it again, and when he goes over it again, here's the beginning, right? He goes over it, and in certain parts, and then he's supposed to be like doing some kind of commentary about it. So he might talk about the meaning a little. And at the end, it's the same kind of thing. And then it ends. This middle part usually has nothing to do with this or with that, with this, the Bible, the passage, okay? It's just other stuff. And I've noticed this because, what I notice is by this point, people tend to tune out. They get kind of sleepy. They doze off. They start daydreaming. So they're kind of listening, but they're not really listening. And then I've even seen them use lighting effects with that because that works with this. Like they'll turn the light on and then he'll finish and then that's it. It's like snap out of it, This is when they hypnotize you right here. Okay. The same thing happens with television. People watch television and they kind of zone out, right? And they've done, scientific studies with this. There are different brain waves. There's the alpha, beta, gamma, And when they watch television, their brain waves turn to the other one. I forgot what it was, if it was beta or alpha, but they're in between awake and asleep. And that's when you're easily hypnotized and mind controlled. And that's when you're watching television. And funny how they call it programming, right? They're programming something. Yeah, it's you. All right. Same dynamic happens here. You're kind of in that brainwave state, and they can say anything, and it'll just kind of be absorbed unconsciously, And I call this the sandwich tactic because it's sandwiched with all that. And this part has nothing to do with the Bible part, okay? It's usually what they want you, this is the part you gotta watch because that's what they want you thinking. Something about politics, something about a certain part of the world, little place, all these things. That's where they do it. And then when he gets to the end of this, and then they still have their Bible in their lap, they've been zoned out this whole time. They kind of come out of it, their Bible's still open in their lap. Eventually they close it, and it's part of this mind control process because subconsciously they're thinking, well, the Bible's been open on my lap this whole time. He's been preaching and teaching from the Word. That must have all been God's Word, even though I dozed a little. And it wasn't. It was what they want you to take, which was not God's Word. It was something else. But you see how that works? Then you think this is gospel truth, whatever they wanted you to take away from this, when it wasn't gospel truth at all. But it's part of that, this physical book in your lap, the Bible in your lap open, makes you think this was straight out of the Word of God, so I better accept this A, B, C, D, and E he was talking about, if they even really consciously are aware of this. That's how it works. See, so I've seen it all the time. Okay, so be very careful. If you have something on in the background, I don't care if it's a radio, television, somebody talking, just don't zone out. Do something, they do it at certain time spans where they know when you start losing attention. And that's when they bring this in. Pay attention, see what they're doing. Okay? And you'll notice this. And don't be a victim of it. Okay, so that's the deal there. Now, next one on the list. Repetition. I have seen this. A lot of cults use it. I've seen it on Christian websites, and I mentioned this many times. A lot of this stuff is infiltrated, okay? They will repeat the same things, and I don't mean good things, okay? They'll repeat the same things over and over again, and that's the part they want to brainwash you with. They want to indoctrinate you. They want to program you with a certain idea. Some of these websites, it was this constantly it was like banging on a drum with a gong endlessly. Okay, the repetition of it for something like that or some other thing. Okay, and they're trying to deceive you. Okay, so repetition is one of them. If they repeat, and the studies have shown, okay, that works well. When they keep repeating the same thing, eventually people start believing it, and they incorporate it unconsciously. Oh yeah, well, that's just how it is. They have no evidence at all whatsoever. It's just been ingrained in them by repetition. Okay. Then we have, these are kind of crowd control. Everyone agrees. Okay, so what, right? Everybody except you might agree, and they can all be wrong, and you can be right. So this is the crowd control one. Don't go along with the crowd. Just because everybody is going a certain direction, don't follow them. Remember, the masses go down the broad road that leads to destruction. It's the few that are going to eternal life. So don't follow the crowd. Then we have this one, experts claim whatsoever item, right? Oh, another thing about hypnosis. If people don't think pastors are in on this, let me let you in on a little secret. One of my family members was once engaged to a future pastor. This was back in the 30s. No, 40s. Yeah. And he told her that it was part of his training to become a minister. he had to take a class on hypnosis, how to mind control people. Okay? So it's not something I'm flying off the handle on. Okay? Okay. So we have, anyway, experts claim just because they're wearing a white lab coat doesn't mean what they're saying is true. Okay? People fall for this all the time. This was one example of what this happened here big time. Right? Right. Boy, did it work there. Okay, then fear. They get you by fear and isolation. Sound familiar? Right. Okay. Yeah. All that was happening here. But fear, isolation, they control the information and they squash the dissent. Any dissenting voices are crushed, not allowed. Freedom of speech had this happen to it during that time, okay? All of this was happening. So they're crushing critical thinking. That's another big one. They don't want you questioning anything that they say. We see that in churches, somebody comes and asks the pastor something, and it's, can be something not a normal, like, question about the Gospels. It's something like, well, why do you do things this way instead of that way? Oh, they get angry. They don't want questions, Then they'll try to single out the dissenter, make an example of them, maybe embarrass them or something, so nobody else will be bold enough to do this anymore. Okay, now there's a lot of this, different ways they do this. Manipulation, coercion, coercing you, and I'll talk more about these. God doesn't do this. He doesn't twist our arm. He doesn't trick us, okay? It's truth, it's light, it's free will, okay? Sincerity of heart, that's what he's looking for. All right, but they are the other way around, okay? They do these tactics to get you to go along. Peer pressure, pressure of any kind, power dynamics. Tactics like this, they will use public situations, peer pressure, like in crowds and stuff, to get people embarrassed. All right, like if you do step out of line, they embarrass you. And then what happens is people, they've like kind of they know they're kind of being singled out and embarrassed, but they're kind of aware, and they're kind of like trying to cover this and kind of explain it away. I forgot what it's called, but they try to justify it, like buying in a way, like, oh no, I really agree with that, it's okay, that kind of thing. And then like take some of these churches that are abusive, like financially. They'll ask too much of people, or even in a volunteer sense, whatever it is. They don't respect boundaries. They ask for too much money. They ask for too much, whatever it is, effort or whatever, too much loyalty or something. And people, little by little, go along with it. And then they go pretty far. And if they would have seen that ahead of time, they wouldn't have gone out there that far. Now that they're out there that far, it's a little too late. So they kind of convince themselves, like, no, that's what I wanted anyway. I would have done it anyway, after all. Yes. And they kind of get them to buy in like that. And it's a very sneaky tactic. Most people don't realize it's happening. It relates to this thing called cognitive dissonance. I'll write this down. Cognitive dissonance. You would have to look this up, the definition on Google, and see. And in psychology, they talk about this more. But these are the things happening. People kind of, or there's another name for it, Stockholm syndrome. Like Sweden has the capital is Stockholm, and syndrome. Okay, so look that up and you'll see. Same idea, right? They try to justify their mistakes, basically. And this is how a lot of cults get people, because cults, they ask too much. They ask all this money. They ask a lot of volunteer work, free labor. They ask for other things. They cross all these boundaries. They make all these crazy rules that they expect people to follow, legalistic things. They invade your privacy. They ask, too many questions, even like what couples are doing in the bedroom, or, just what you're going to wear for this and that. It's too controlling and too invasive. And people have relinquished their own autonomy to these people. They need, they think, they don't need your consent anymore. They can just demand all this and cross all these boundaries. You need to know about your personal autonomy, your own rights. If you don't know this, you are prey for them to come and just gobble you up, okay? So, autonomy. But they've given up too much already, too much money, too much effort. And that later it's hard for them, let's say 20 years down the road, to admit that, oh boy, I made a mistake. And then they'd have to acknowledge, if they leave this cult, now all of this was lost. It was all for nothing. It was all a waste. And they can't get their money back now. They can't get their time. All the wrong decisions they made, they could have made better ones. It's too late now, and they have to face that. That's hard. And then to swallow their pride, humble themselves, and admit they were wrong. All that works together. So that it holds them in this cult. It just holds them in. And they start little by little. See, they get you slippery slope, right? They get you down this road. By then, you're trapped and it's too late. Okay? So these are some of the tactics, all right? So I want you to be aware of this early, from any direction. It doesn't matter what it is. Somebody's trying to exploit you. You need to use this. Use your mind, use your critical thinking, your autonomy, know your rights, okay? Or you are going to be lunch for them, okay? And I literally mean a lunch ticket. They will take your money. I was never in that kind of thing, but I've seen it and I know how it works. And when it comes to doctrines, you have to know why you believe what you believe. So nobody can try to wrangle you out of it. Okay? Now, then, let's see, I have a few items on the list. Yeah, that, and then I should do this one first because that's connected to the other one. The buying in. I'll write that down. Getting you to buy in. Okay? They get you, like I said, invested in all those ways to the point that you would be embarrassed to turn back at that point. You've invested too much money, and now to admit that you were wrong would mean you'd have to count this all a loss. And most people find that too hard, let alone the pride in admitting you were wrong. So this is how they hold their members in these cults, okay? And as I said, investing free labor, by volunteer work. They all do this. They get their people doing all this stuff, spending all their free time doing things for the cult. Okay. Then there's this one. I'm gonna call, I named it this. I don't know if I saw this somewhere or not, but I'm calling it bandwagoning. Okay, so people are recruited to one group. All right, it might be a known cult or not, but it's some group. And that leads to another kind of a group. And then that leads to another one. And eventually they get hijacked into all kinds of activities. They become activists for a certain thing. It could be political agendas, all kinds of stuff. Next thing you know, they're all fired up about this thing. And, it just goes on and they get all entangled that way. They don't even realize it. It's just step by step, okay? And all the people, the crowds, that helps. It pushes them along. Well, all these other people are into this, so I guess it's good. I don't know. Maybe I should join that, and I should get involved, and I should campaign for this, and get active on that. And, they just get them doing all these things. And then what happens is they start believing in those certain ideas that they want them to believe in. It could be a certain political idea. It could be a certain global idea. It could be to support a certain country or whatever. Okay, so that's how they get them there. All right. And we do see this in church with politics. One thing leads to another activity, or that to another political group or something, an action of some kind. They see the crowd is just doing all this, and they just follow along, and they kind of get swept away, So, like, you're herded, basically, is another way to put that. Okay, so we have this, and now some more examples here. Oh, this one. The emotional ties. Okay, they get emotional ties to, I know this light is kind of glaring, but it could be to a place. All right, it could be to a person. It could be a political party, whatever it is, but they get people to have this emotional tie. And oh my goodness, once they get them there, it's just forget it, Like if it's a person, that's their little mascot. And they will defend that person at all cost, no matter what they did, due to emotional ties. And we see this in these abusive churches. They abuse people sexually, financially. There's a lot of control, manipulation, and they'll defend that person. They refuse to see the truth just because of emotional ties. Well, they helped me. Well, this, well, that. I have seen so many Christians defending heretics because, that's the person that I first heard the gospel from. And so, okay, they will do that once in a while, but, they're a heretic. Don't follow them. Don't listen to anything else. But just because of that, they'll listen to everything they say, and they'll swallow all this heresy and be led astray because of an emotional tie. Okay? And I've heard of so many cases like this lately. It's just unbelievable. Places, certain countries, they might be small ones, but oh boy, the whole campaign in church is to get you behind that country no matter what. So I see that all the time now. Politics. We're seeing that now a whole lot. It's just all this hype about something. I'm just going to say hype. They call it a revival, but it's really hype. It's that there was a real revival that they don't acknowledge, but the one that's false that they acknowledge. And it's just a lot of hype to get you in a certain place. And I talked about that in a video not too long ago. So, okay, now we have the next one. This kingdom stuff that I was talking about, that video. Okay, now we have this one. This is an example. It's kind of a peer pressure one, so I'll just put peer pressure. Okay, a perfect example of this is you're in a crowd. Let's say you're in an auditorium, and there's a little play or something, and you're there, and there's something about it that you don't really approve of in the play. And it ends, and the crowd, there'll be applause, there'll be clapping, the crowd will be clapping. And, if you're the one person not applauding, right, the one person not clapping, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb, right? And it takes a lot of boldness and courage to refuse to clap when you don't approve of something, when you disagree with something. So many people will just go along with this and applaud anyway, even though they disagree, but they'll just do it for peer pressure. They don't want to be, have a spotlight on them and singled out, right? So they'll do it. And then later, that little thing I mentioned, cognitive dissonance, sets in. And they slowly begin to accept the thing. Like, no, well, I clapped. No, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I must really have approved it well in some way, at least, on some level. And it wasn't really that bad, and they'll start to accept the item. See, they don't want to look like they are the odd one out, right? So applause is you just have to be bold and stand up and say, no, I'm not going to applaud that. And people can like it or not. I don't approve of it, so I'm not going to clap. And that's it. And I know I've done that, where you just don't do it. And it's not easy, but you have to do it. And there are some heads that will turn, and I just look at them like, yeah, and what about it? Anyway, so, and then they look away and roll their eyes, you know what I mean? Those people. And it's like, well, you're not going to get me to comply no matter what you do. And that's the end of the story, But that is a big one for mind control. So they will use that in crowd settings. Many times they send their people on a little retreat to get them to do exactly the same kind of thing. And I'm not saying all retreats are bad. I've been on retreats, they can be very good. But just beware, if it's certain things, this can be happening, and just you have to be ready to use your backbone if something comes up. Church functions can have that coercion aspect to them as well. Now, here, just a little bit more. Okay, here, this one. You have to also be aware of subconscious ideas that you absorbed a long time ago throughout your life, and you're not even aware of it now. It's just embedded in there. We have to weed these things out, okay? So, and we don't realize it most of the time. So, we just have to maybe there's a process to get rid of these things, but if you're a people pleaser, this is hard too. You probably have a lot of these and you're not aware of it. I'll give you some examples, like when people say things like, you should blankety blank. It could be go to church. It could be vote. It could be give certain groups such and such an amount of money. It could be you should have a house by now. You should be making this and that much money by now. You should be married with 5 kids by a certain time in your life, and so on. Okay, so be careful of the shoulds. That's another social control mechanism, okay? And trust me, there are experts that have been trained in how to do these things, manipulate people, mind control. It's all for them to make money. It could be businesses, it could be workplaces, it could be politics, it could be religious institutions, it could be anything. The whole thing is they want to extract something from you. They want to exploit you at your loss and their benefit, of course. And they brainwash and manipulate people in that direction. Ultimately, the devil is behind all of this, if not most of it, with deceiving people about going the opposite way from the way God wants us to go. And he uses all these tactics and more. There are more. I mean, this is just a list. There are always more, but these are main things I've noticed and looked up to, or heard about. But right now, all those things are being used to usher people down a certain path that leads to the end times deceptions and events. So now more than ever, we have to be on guard against this kind of thing, okay? So be very aware of what's going on around you in these ways, wherever you are in a group setting. It could be the television, whatever it is. Just be aware and just take control of your mind. Don't let anybody else do that instead, okay? And this will keep you out of cults. This will keep you from being exploited financially. There are a lot of scams going on around out there now. You have to be a critical thinker. Question everything, everything. I mean, I have avoided every scam by being a critical thinker, okay? And that would be another video, but okay, just, yeah, be very aware. Look things up, do your research, okay? But that's it. I just wanted to do a video on that. Okay, that's it for now. And I'll be back next time. And I don't know yet when that will be because, like I said, I've been over the whole Bible. I'm not going to do it again. You know, the videos are up there. If you haven't already, just go through them. I would start at the beginning, which is the bottom, and work your way up. And that'll keep you busy for a while. But when I have a topic, I'll be back. Okay, it just depends. I don't know yet when. I just kind of, have to see what happens. Okay, well, God bless you. Have a blessed rest of your day and week, and I'll be back next time.